Hello friends, welcome to this video. Today we are going to look at the issue of the genealogies of modernity, which presents us with the current culture that we encounter in the current world. Just to explain about modernity, I would like to explain this by going back into the medieval period. The medieval period presents us with a culture until the 11th century where faith and reason were contrasts to each other. For this I mean faith used to be used or that are utilized as a defense mechanism against paganism. And it wasn't until the 11th century where faith and reason, which in Latin we call fides et ratio, became internalized. And this process has always continued until in 1962 to 1965, when a big council, which we call the Second Vatican Council, was held in Rome. And this council, for the first time in the history of the church, became a dialogue with modernity. Modernity started in the 16th and 17th centuries in the West. And what modernity did, it tried to push this integration of faith and reason, or rather the internalization of faith and reason, which in a better language we can call it a theocentric culture. And by removing faith from the center of human life, it led to what we call the rationalized kind of culture, which we call it now in a layman's language modernity. And what modernity achieved at doing was it removed from the center of human life the role of faith, the role of God, and it brought a new world order which dictated that the truth can be achieved without divine intervention. And anything, modernity continues, anything that is not scientifically proven, or rather empirically verifiable, does not exist and is not true. The danger here was when you remove metaphysics, or rather what belongs to faith is what in another language you can explain it philosophically as metaphysical truth. When it's removed from the center of human life, we are left with a rationalized culture. A rationalized culture is a culture that treats faith as an evil, treats faith with suspicion, and it ends up with a new world order which has got lots of values and brings its own values, brings its own truth. What is believable is what can be proven. What is believable is what can be verified. And any other thing that does not fall within the scope of what is verifiable, or rather scientifically proven, is not true. That's why in the current culture, we now have the loss of faith in our culture. We have empty pews in our churches. We have moral decadence in the society, because there's always a very big danger, a big danger than even an atomic bomb, which separates faith and reason. It is very detrimental to separate these two. And it's for this reason that John Paul II wrote an encyclical called Fides et Ratio, Faith and Reason. And in this encyclical, it dictates that, or rather teaches us that faith and reason must be in dialogue with each other if we want to achieve what is true. It goes on to say that not every truth is empirically verifiable. Some of the truth are beyond physics, and therefore they fall within the scope of metaphysics. And these are matters that we treat with faith. And that's where the issue of God and the transcendence comes in. So in other words, a culture that treats faith with suspicion, it in a way, in one way or another, pushes away the issue of transcendence. So we end up living in the present without thinking of the future, because the future cannot be verified. The future can only be believed is going to happen because today is. But then we have another culture which does not belong to God, because what? We cannot verify God, you cannot scientifically prove that God exists. So what do we end up with? A godless society. So in this talk, I wish to show that modernity is actually a regress and not actually a progress. And therefore, we need to go back to the drawing board and we look at the medieval period since the 11th century, where faith and reason were at par. Then after the 11th century, the internalization of faith and reason happened, and we started following the right track. But happened to the 16th centuries and 17th century, that's where things went wrong. We have to go back to the drawing board. And this is where Benedict XVI talks about the hermeneutic of continuity. Back to the drawing board, it shows us that if we approach modernity, we should not approach it as an enemy either from the perspective of faith. But we should approach modernity in a continuous way that does not put both faith and reason, fides et ratio, at par with each other. But in a way, dialogue with modernity, be able to practice our faith within a modern culture in a way that we find our modern language in which we can dialogue with faith. And then reason finds its own language in which it can dialogue with reason. So, my brothers and sisters, in this short talk, I wish to ask you to go back to the drawing board with me, and then we look what are the ways in our present culture in which we can dialogue with modernity. What are the modern ways that we can bring transcendence into the human thought, into the Christian practice? What are the ways we can integrate both faith and reason, and yet the two of them remain relevant in the 21st century? Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.